This is a bottom formation that's happening. Bitcoin's not going to die. I think it is. Well, maybe you're in the wrong room. We're going to go over, briefly the Bitcoin thesis, but in general, I want to zoom out, take a look at the market conditions. Everyone that's a Bitcoin holder, it obviously has been a tough 12 months. But the question I want to pose to everyone today is, has the thesis changed? What does the market look like? And where do we go from here? Okay, so I won't spend too much time on this slide. This is pretty basic, and I imagine 95% of the people in this room understand this. But if you don't, or you have more questions, or your conviction in this, in these fundamental principles is wavering, then happy to chat after the talk, but I won't spend too much time on it. So, I just kind of wanted to put some numbers to what we're seeing here. I almost titled the talk, "Bitcoin is Dead, Long Live Bitcoin." I tweeted that about a week ago, and it led to some confusion among the Japanese audience. And so, I decided to, not go with that provocative title. But, to rewind, I guess, I work at Metaplanet. We're the third largest Bitcoin Treasury company. We hold about 40,000 Bitcoin, so about 20 basis points of the Bitcoin network, give or take. And the journey started for us about 2 years ago, April of 2024, so a bit more than 2 years. And the company was just, a small hotel company with a 14 million market cap. Today, despite the extreme volatility of Bitcoin and even more extreme volatility of the common stocks of companies holding Bitcoin, we're about a $1.8 billion company and change, and we have about $2.5 billion of Bitcoin. So it's really been a transformational 2 years for us, and I'll explain how we made that happen. So this chart, what are we looking at? This is the 200-week moving average for Bitcoin. So no fancy analytics here, simple moving average. Warren Buffett buys assets under the 200-week moving average. A lot of people, regardless of the asset class, will put something on their watch list. If it's under the 200-week moving average, it's maybe a decent time to start accumulating a position. And so the bottom here, this is the quantiles of the 200-week moving average and Bitcoin's price relative to it. Right, so we're in about the sixth percentile in all of Bitcoin's history relative to the 200-week. Could Bitcoin go lower? Absolutely. Who knows where the bottom is? But this is a bottom formation that's happening. Bitcoin's not going to die. If you think it is, well, maybe you're in the wrong room. But this is what the bottom looks like. I can tell you that sentiment in 2022 and all of the other bear markets felt just like this, with a different flavor and different kind of talking points. So here's kind of another one of these charts, right? The magic of Bitcoin is we can see the supply with 100% transparency. And so it's like, how valuable would the data set be if you could see every gold bar in the entire world, when it changed hands, to who it changed hands to, at what price? It would be a $1 trillion data set. That'd be really extremely valuable to any capital allocator. With Bitcoin, we actually have the data, right? And so we can look at all of the coins in the network, when they last moved, when were they acquired, at what price. Is there some noise in that? Yeah, there is, right? If you change wallets or upgrade your cold storage, or an exchange shuffles some UTXOs around, it changes. But net, this is a pretty useful kind of signal of, okay, what's the aggregate market profile look like? You can kind of see the previous bear markets, right? So the current amount of the Bitcoin network that's in a loss is right now about equivalent to March of 2020, when we wicked to $3,000, right? So Bitcoin's at 60K. The bears are ever confident, 50K, 40K, 30K, 20K, it's over, zero. But this is how it is every bear market. I think for those around in 2022, the calls were deafening for 12, 10, 8, 5, $3,000. We bottomed at 15, right? There was seemingly no catalyst for Bitcoin to ever go up again, and it did. And so we'll check out why. So again, this is kind of for people familiar with the on-chain world and this kind of emergent class of analytics. This is one of these really popular frameworks. It's called, this is a long-term holder supply. And how do you quantify a long-term holder? It's give or take. There's a statistical analysis component to this, but give or take, if a coin doesn't move for about 6 months, then we put them in the long-term holder bucket, because the probability that those coins move is much, much less statistically than a coin that just moved 10 minutes ago. A coin that moved 10 minutes ago is very likely to move again. A coin that's been hodled for 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, 5 years is not likely to move. So right now, what do we see? We see about 82% of the network in long-term holder hands, right? And these are the people buying at 60 2 years ago, at 120 last year. These are everywhere in between. This is the amount of the network in the hands of really the believers. Maybe it's me and you, or maybe it's, maybe you're not a believer of Bitcoin, but the people buying this right now and holding it are the people that deeply, deeply believe in Bitcoin. So, an interesting pattern has emerged here, right? In a bull market, what you often hear, especially on X and Twitter with all the noise, is supply squeeze. Supply squeeze. Bitcoin's going up. Why? It's a scarce asset, more demand than supply. It's a supply squeeze. But actually, that's a little bit of an inverted truth. In a bull market, you can see that there's actually a distribution, right? So the people that were stacking Bitcoin at $3,000, at $15,000, they take a little slice off at the top, right? What's happening now? It's the opposite. So right now, actually, you hear it, it's deafening at the peaks. Right now, there's no reason for Bitcoin to ever go up again. But what do we have forming? A supply squeeze, right? And so eventually, all of the willing sellers, all of the forced sellers, all of the people that are saying, okay, it's over forever, just take their ball and go home, right? They sold. And who's buying? It's the convicted long-term holders, right? And so eventually, just like you saw in 2022, through the depths of the bear, what do you see? Relentless accumulation, right? And then into the bull, there's a bit of a distribution. This is how Bitcoin's maturing, and it does it in these big, long 3 to 4 year macro cycles. So there's a lot of noise in between. But fundamentally, why will Bitcoin ever go up again? Well, the ETFs are selling, and Saylor's going to get liquidated, and Quantum's going to send Bitcoin to zero, and there's all these different narratives going on, and it's deafening, right? There's no reason for Bitcoin to ever go up again. This is the reason. It's just a fundamental supply-demand imbalance, and every day it's building. So with that said, I kind of set the stage on kind of big picture views. I wanted to talk a little bit about Metaplanet. We are a Bitcoin treasury company, but I think people think we are only a Bitcoin treasury company. We're only a box of Bitcoin. And frankly, I don't think there's there's anything wrong with that, because I'm extremely bullish the underlying asset. So I'm happy to be sitting on a huge pile of Bitcoin, but Metaplanet is more than that, and I would like to share with you why. So as of the current last quarter, Metaplanet has 250,000 retail shareholders in Japan. So that's about 1 out of every 600 people in the entire country, men, woman, child, elderly, is a shareholder of our company. And to be transparent and frank with you, and I'm sure many of you know, the Bitcoin and our common stock from June of 2025 has been in a pretty tough downtrend, right? In the face of that, what's happening? Bitcoin adoption through Metaplanet is soaring. Why? Well, Japan's a bit interesting. It's a conservative culture. Mt. Gox happened, and it was sort of this like corporate culture shock, PTSD, right? And so Bitcoin and the crypto digital asset space more broadly was sort of viewed for a long, long time as untouchable, right? And Metaplanet came in 2024 and really broke that taboo. And it's one of the things that the individual, the retail shareholders, for the first time, had a way to express their view of the world in something that was familiar, right? And so, not to get too much in the weeds, but everybody in Japan has a securities account. If you want to log into a crypto exchange and buy Bitcoin, never mind all the tax considerations, there's physical paperwork, it takes weeks, the bid-ask spreads are very wide. There's not nearly the amount of adoption for crypto digital asset native onboarding versus brokerage account financial securities, right? And so why are we seeing this? I mean, frankly, the exchanges in Japan, the Bitcoin trading volume, really dried up at the same time that Metaplanet exploded, right? And so people, for the first time, had a way to express their view of the world in something they're already familiar with, a brokerage account. So what's next for Metaplanet? Why are we not just a big bag of Bitcoin? That's what the skeptics say, is we're just a holding company that does nothing else. Well, what's the grand vision for us? How can we capitalize on this dynamic? 250,000 retail shareholders and growing. And to put it in context, it's one of the top 30, 40 companies in all of Japan, right? And so there's a real movement, there's a real magic in the air, despite the drawdown. And I think you saw this in a similar way in kind of the previous cycle in 2022 with MicroStrategy, right? It was only the believers left. It was only the believers in Bitcoin, the fundamental hodlers and drivers of this adoption curve were the only ones left at the end of the ghastly bear market. So what's next for Metaplanet? Well, our vision is really to be a full stack financial platform globally, but based in Japan. And so, we have a huge collateral base, but there's so much more to do. And so we're really, really focused on how do we make Bitcoin as a collateral foundation for equity, for credit, for debt. It could be through a perpetual preferred, but it also could be through private notes, Bitcoin-backed lending, various structured products, other securities. The reality is a lot of the world can't handle, touch, interact with native spot commodity Bitcoin. And I want to preface that by saying everybody should buy Bitcoin and send it to cold storage, and there's nothing that can replicate that self-sovereignty. But if you talk to Capital Group or if you talk to trillion-dollar asset managers, they cannot buy spot Bitcoin in cold storage and send it to their ledger. It's just the reality. So, there's 95% of the capital in the world can't actually interact with a commodity. They need a security, they need something that they know and that has the regulatory backdrop behind it. So what does Metaplanet do? About a week ago, we acquired Cboe Securities. It's a small online digital native bond brokerage firm in Japan with a Type 1 license. So upon closing, that will be renamed to Metaplanet Securities. And the vision is to onboard our retail audience into a full stack Bitcoin native financial platform. Not crypto, but Bitcoin focused, Bitcoin at the core. And so the securities is just one piece of the puzzle for us. I mean, really, we see the treasury driving the value of the company, but synergistically, securities, asset management, lending, these are all things that we're studying and working on intensely. And so what's the total addressable market for us, or not even for Metaplanet, but for Bitcoin in general in the capital markets? And Japan is particularly relevant because there's a huge fixed income market, there's a huge amount of cash savings earning nothing, right? And so just to give some context, the junk bond market in Japan does not exist, right? And so when we're looking at junk fixed income paper to try to study what could be possible, there literally isn't one. 6% fixed income in Japan is like the junkiest junk bond you could possibly ever dream of. And so there's a gap in this market, and we think we have a way to fulfill some of that demand. And so, I think just to kind of step back a little, right now Bitcoin sentiment is totally in the gutter. We are deeply convicted, and we are rallying over in the East hundreds of thousands of diehard believers of Bitcoin through Metaplanet. And our goal is to onboard all of Japan, as many as we can, into the asset and build a foundation on Bitcoin for the long term. And so in due course, we will find a bottom. Bitcoin will do what it always does and rip the faces off all of the bears. And at that point in time, when Bitcoin doesn't die for the 15th time in a row, we will be positioned. Our goal is to be a full stack financial platform domiciled in Japan, operating at a global scale. And our goal on a long time frame is to accumulate 1% of the network. And so we have some work to do. We have our work cut out for us, but we think Japan is a really unique market, and we think we have a quasi-monopoly in that market. And so I think that is, so this is just our shareholder meeting about a year ago. And so this is on a Monday morning. For context, this is an extraordinary general meeting. So you have annual meetings for shareholders. You have extraordinary meetings when you need to amend the articles of incorporation or authorize new classes of shares, et cetera. This is an extraordinary general meeting. And so for people that, we have a lot of TradFi members of our team that have been in the capital markets in Japan for a long, long time. This doesn't happen for any company, even the mega caps. And so there's something in the air here, and I think we've really, we've caught lightning in a bottle with the captive latent, Bitcoin native energy. So with all that said, I think I'm gonna wrap it up. I apologize for jumping around a little bit, but thank you for all being here. It really means a lot. Thank you for the BFC team, and thanks for tuning in.